I'm JUDI TAVILL, but my soul goes beyond JUDI TAVILL. I majored in fashion design in college, and I minored in business, which is kind of amusing. But I pursued that right out of school, and I ended up being the head designer at a relatively young age for a company called Lilly Pulitzer. It's a relaunch kind of thing of a line that had been big in like the 60s and 70s. Like Jackie Kennedy would wear these little shift dresses with, even in fashion, like I was always really into like draping the fabric and, you know, working, I think, sort of three-dimensionally. But when it came time to, and I learned to make patterns in my own work and stuff like that, I never really liked the sewing process. And luckily I had a Bachelor of Fine Arts. So even though I majored in fashion design, I was good with drawing, more so drawing than painting. And three-dimensional stuff at that time was kind of like, woo, I like hated it. So I had no experience in ceramics. And so I ended up becoming a designer and doing my own thing. And I feel like a lot of that resourcefulness, like when you don't know how to do something, you just figure it out. Even now in my ceramic work, like I didn't go to school for ceramics, and years later I ended up working with clay. I took my first pottery class back in like 2002, I want to say, and it was a park system class. My first thing was hand building, but I really wanted to learn the wheel, and all of my experience was really turning art into a functional item. So I was all about like the functionality of pottery and being able to make art that's also functional and sell it and all this stuff. So that was how I first got started. And my work was much simpler than what I mean, and even now it's changed probably from a lot of what you've seen online. This piece here is the bottom part of a sculpture. Like those are the other pieces, and they will stack together to make the sculpture. So I did that. I have a wall piece I'm working on, and then I'm not sure what our third assignment will be, but that's what's coming next. But I still have to like, I've got, yes, I would say I've always got a few things going on at the same time. Because I have small scale stuff I was working on before this that are just sitting there in like bisqueware, like saying like, when are you going to do something? I think I've always sort of, even from a young age, questioned and thought about a lot of things. But I also focus a lot on duality, because I feel like that's sort of how my life has been. It's been a very like I'll always say like, and then the other part of me thinks blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, how do you call it? Extroverted, introvert. And then in terms of like religion and spirituality, like I was brought up Jewish, but my family wasn't like so religious or anything. So there was a lot to explore there. And a lot of this stuff is like all religions. It's based on like, I mean, the core things that are good about religion are based on like, you know, being a good person and frankly, you know, being connected to God. But isn't that ultimately therefore being connected to everybody? I actually have a tendency to believe in, you're here, your soul is going through certain things. I'm JUDI TAVILL, but my soul goes beyond JUDI TAVILL, and I'm experiencing things here, and I'm given opportunities that I have to contend with, and I even I don't even know if I'm making the best of them, right? And then potentially that soul will go on, and it was all about like trees and the whole overstory of trees and the understory. And again, connection, parts, whole. And it really made me think a lot about like nurturing and stuff like that, but still the parts and the whole. The virus has made me think a lot about parts and whole, and how we are all these special, important parts, but you mustn't forget you're part of a bigger picture. I mean, I know this is going off the rails here, but this virus, as horrible as it is, it's so interesting to me that it's forcing us to realize, like it or not, we are all connected. Like, yes, I would say I have. I haven't worked a lot with low fire clay. I will say I've tinkered in it, other than like raku, but even when I've done raku, they weren't low fire clays. I mean, they were only fired, I think, to a lower fire, but that was I mean, it's been years since I've done that. I've worked in different clays along the way. I've wood fired. I haven't personally run a wood fire kiln. I was there for the firing and so forth at Baltimore Clay Works years ago. It was like 2011, I think. But I loved that. But I also realized like that lifestyle of wood firing isn't really conducive to me. So I generally work with cone 6, but I've worked with different porcelains. I've worked with different colors of clay, different amounts of grog, like how fine it is, how thick it is, more sculptural things, sandier. Well, it's twofold. I have a very hard time planning a 3-dimensional piece by drawing it out first. I can't, like, my brain goes like, what? Like, like I can see it in my head and I can make it with the clay, but I have a harder time planning it that way. Now, if you put that piece in front of me after, I can draw what I see, and I can draw that pretty well. But I do less of the sketching of the piece first. I usually have like inspiration happening and maybe some drawing and some ideas in my head, but it's never like a detailed drawing. And part of it is I like to see where it goes. And I feel like if I make a drawing and say, I'm making this, that's like, then it's almost like, why am I even making it? Like, it's like, that takes all the fun out of it.
Yeah.
I think I have a very hard time with rejection. So I have to apply to things. And I mean, if you want to get your work out there, you have to apply to things. It's not even always like direct rejection. Like, you put things up on the internet, right? And you think of it one way, but other people will tell you how they think it. Oh, and plus, like, I've done a lot of the texturing, and there is a syndrome of sorts called tryptophobia. And it's people that are afraid of millions of holes, and I would get the most obnoxious responses on my, and here I am trying to like show my process, do my art. And it would be, people would tag other people who had problems and fears with this because they were like fetishizing it. And they were like saying like, look at this, like, and they put like, you know, absolutely. And, you know, and I work very much alone in my own studio. What I would really love more of is somehow to develop a group. I mean, I did this thing through a group out of Canada, actually, called Thrive Mastermind, which is for female identifying artists and stuff like that. That was like a Zoom group that you did, but it was less about like critiques and stuff. It was more about like just being able to talk to other artists about like what you're going through and dealing with and stuff like that. And so I have my people like that, but I don't have like the experience of working in like a community studio or a school environment, where I think it could be annoying at times, but I also think there's something really great about it, the back and forth and everything. and even just to have like another set of eyes. I mean, my husband is not an artist, and he comes in and gives me his 2 cents, and I'm like, oh, is that right? Like, you know, so actually having my son home right now, it's kind of like awesome, because he'll push me, but he'll also be like, you know, he'll say things just to like get me going, but he'll also be like, well, I kind of like what's happening here, but what's happening there? And because I'm not getting that on a regular basis. So I definitely think education and like having some sort of tribe to, you know, go back and forth with is helpful.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for meeting. It's rare that we get this opportunity to sit down and actually speak with an experienced artist like yourself.
Yeah, no, thank you for being interested.